All right. Live. First time live with this channel. I have to admit, a little nervous, but that's all good, right? Because nervousness is you approaching things you fear. And when you do the thing you fear most, the death of fear is certain. All right. I know I got 3 people in here, I think, right now. And if you can hear me, let me know in the chat, perhaps. I'm going to answer questions, but also use some time to jump in and respond to some comments to dive in deeper to some different concepts. So, guys in the chat, if you can hear me, let me know. Would appreciate it. And I'll get moving on it. Let's see. Yes. Okay, cool. What's up? Hope you're doing good. I am doing good. Quick sloth. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, how about this? Yes, audio is good. Excellent. Happy to hear. Thank you for bearing with me. Even though I'm right under 40 years of age, I'm sometimes super old with this type of stuff. So forgive me. All right. Plantar fasciitis. Yes, I certainly do. I've got it because I've been told to stay with the balls of my feet. Any help, appreciate it. 100% I got some for you because I've had that. Probably had almost all the injuries you could think of. Not all of them, but almost. So plantar fasciitis, a couple things. One is, and forgive me if these are very common that you've heard, but I don't know which ones you have or haven't. Water bottle, bottle of plastic water, freeze it up, freaking roll your foot on it, and do that every day for a little bit of time. A few minutes. That should help out a lot. Also, you might want to get some inserts in your boxing shoes because they're flat-soled shoes, and that's a tough time for people that have arches that are not going to support them very well. That's my big thing. And then the last thing, less helpful, but is also massaging the calf and Achilles. That can help as well. Compression ice, tennis ball, absolutely. And that's where we can get some of that with that frozen water ball. Like I said, rolling on that makes a world of difference. Also, inserts is a thing. What's up, Derek? Derek's someone I've worked with in person. Thank you, Coach. Boxing Fan 7878. Thank you, Coach, for all the knowledge. You've helped my game a lot. Underrated channel. Thank you, brother. If you don't mind sharing it with people that you think might benefit from it. Facts, Boxing Fan. Thank you, brother. What helps your fighters to keep the right mental space when in the ring? What would you say to them? Well, a lot of things I say in my videos, right? Stay loose. Stay loose. We talk about what we want versus what we don't want, right? And that's a classic rookie fighter problem and coach problem, I think, is you talk about things that you don't want. So don't drop your hands. Don't pick your chin up. Don't be tight. Talk about what you want. But one kind of key phrase that might help you the most is, man, stomp on that ring for a second and say, I own this ring, right? We own this ring. Because you want to have that attitude that ring, that squared circle right there that you're in with your opponent, you own that thing. Have that attitude. Every inch of that you own. It's your property. That dude doesn't belong here. And that's something that I've found to be helpful. And I've told my fighters, just give you a big wide swath answer. Got spike ball, massage gun. You got all this stuff, Ali. Boxing for a week. Hopefully take a few weeks of rest instead. Let's see. Okay, yes. Got spike ball, massage gun, calf, strengthening, exercise, stretch along those hopefully. Yeah. Inserts. Inserts can help. That'd be the last thing. Also, obviously, let yourself recover. Start doing some visualization, my friend. Like I told you, when I was in Mexico boxing, both my shoulders were totally shot. So I could condition, and that's it. I couldn't throw punches, couldn't spar, whatever. Even me working defense was wearing out my shoulders too much because they're so messed up from Lyme disease and everything else. Visualization, my friend. Watch that video. Let's see. How do I get my shoulders stronger? They pop a lot and hurt. Great question. Work on the rotator cuff exercises, here with the band. Make sure your elbows in tight. Also, reverse flies help a lot. And also focus on being relaxed. But the last thing I'll have to say to you is get up against the wall with a hard ball and get those spots and move your shoulder around, and you'll hear it popping and locking, and you're kind of working out the scar tissue. and do that every single day. And it can make a big difference, Izzy. Let's see here. Coach, who's your favorite all-time fighter and why? Personally, let me tell you when I boxed, because right now I really don't have one, because I do my best to be fluid to whatever fighter I work with and whatnot. And because if you get too much into like one guy and you're coaching a lot of different types of guys, I think it can be hurtful. But for me, Joe Louis, connected with him kind of spiritually and technically, and poker face, so many things. Joe Louis, and then Joe Frazier. Something about the Joes, I don't know why, but Joe Frazier's relentless rhythm and attack and heart, and then Joe with his skill. I love the left hook is my favorite punch. Let's see. Coach, what's your favorite? Okay. Speaking of strengthening shoulders, thoughts on how to best implement lifting and boxing? Yes. Follow a basic periodization model as best you can. So going from higher reps to lower reps. I recommend not dropping lower than 5 reps with 2 to 3 sets. Minimize heavy pushing exercises and maximize heavy pulling exercises. Go for multi-joint movements. Super basic stuff, but the beauty is in the basics. Yes, your videos are great. Better to learn and watch. Thanks again for your videos are great. Thank you. Face pulls for rotator cuffs. Yeah, I mean, those are good. Those can be a little hard on other things, but for me specifically, because I also have some issues with my neck and whatnot, it can be hard lighting up that there, but absolutely. Yeah, good question. Top 3 favorite boxers of all time. Okay, well, so let me give you my top 3 greatest fighters in the history of boxing. Okay, so number 1, Sugar Ray Robinson, kind of undisputed on that number there, right? In terms of debate. So Sugar Ray Robinson. Then I got to give number 2 to Henry Armstrong, only guy to have 3 different weight division titles at the same time and defend them before it became illegal. He fought for a 4th one, lost it on a draw or didn't win it on a draw against Efrain Garcia. And this was back when there were 8 titles. So he had 3 of 8, and he almost won a 4th. So he almost had half the titles in boxing at that time. There weren't all the juniors and supers. So Henry Armstrong, and then, so that's number 2. Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, Joe Louis, longest reigning heavyweight champion in the history of boxing, most title defenses. You say he fought the Bum of the Month Club, but man, he revolutionized boxing. He and his coach, Jack Blackburn, really, according to Chuck Bodak, revolutionized boxing. Let's see. Nothing big. How can your footwork help win a fight? How to utilize it to your advantage? That's a really open-ended question because it depends what type of fighter you are. But I would say initially with like amateur boxing, be able to cut off the ring, notorious Big Mac. Being able to cut off the ring. I was working with that today on some new guys. Got to be able to cut off that ring. And if you just follow, there's going to be trouble. So be able to cut off that ring. Number 1. So many guys have trouble with it at many different levels. You saw even Floyd Mayweather have trouble with it against McGregor. Lomo, Canelo, Gotti. Entertaining fighters. Lomo is really talented. Canelo is very, very good. Gotti, really entertaining. Not a bad fighter at all, but I mean, that's a good entertaining list by Artist Dans. Can't beat the compound list for building raw strength. 100% KTs, yes. Derek, do you have any upcoming bouts at X3 similar to the ones benefiting parties? No, we don't at this time, man. We are working. We just have the biggest month revenue-wise for that new location that we merged together. Beat the crap, like literally doubled the revenue. And so we're targeted on that as well as getting our guys some fights. But that's in the works, Derek, though. Great question. Bands are pretty good for rotator cuffs. Yes, 100%. Using it for, like I said, here, this exercise like that, as well as doing reverse flies, like Derek said, kind of face pulls are great as well. Reverse flies are 100%. Work the posterior delt, right? Because all of that doesn't get worked enough. And boxing is a very pronated sport like this where you're here and all this gets so tight. So definitely working the back muscles. Let's see. Izzy, speaking of lifting, should we be trying to bulk? Do you recommend eating at a calorie surplus? Okay, well, so the majority of guys, so I did this the opposite when I boxed, and it was not good for me. So I can tell from experience. I, at 5'8", had a little bit of short man complex at a younger year, my younger age. I should have boxed at where Arturo Gatti was at like 140, 147. But I tried to bulk, be bigger, so I got up to 165 and even bigger. And you're fighting guys at 165. Like one of my guys, who's also Coach Dre Ingram, he's got 10 fights, and he started boxing at 220, or he started training at 220, played ball. And so many guys I've had, they started with me at 200 pounds, 220, and then they, over time, got themselves down to a walking weight of 170, 165 as their weight class. So I was going against guys that were coming down from that. And I did fine, but it's more trouble. Don't waste time trying to bulk. And you also saw what it did to Roy Jones Jr., just to give you a high-level example of it. Okay, let's see. Zero Bite, thought you'd be a haggler fan. I mean, I am. I absolutely am, man. I absolutely am. I mean, dude, there's a lot of fighters to be fans of, right? But I just have that super nostalgia. It comes from my dad, because my dad's time when he was most impressed by boxing was when he was, a teenager and whatnot, and that was in the 60s. Let's see. Derek, in a way, is undefeated, but has been knocked down. If you're training a fighter with the same height, weight, reach to fight in a way, what would you focus on? What weaknesses do you see? Anyway, that's a hard question. I'm not going to quite get into that, because the weaknesses also depend on, Derek, great question, depend on your guy, right? What are your guy's strengths? So I'll tell you, I might be about to blow up these comments here, but Inoue does a few things really, 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 really well. I think there's some opportunities there for someone to take him. But he's very powerful. And like Teddy Atlas would say, right? The great eraser. Yeah, just my favorite stylist. Yeah, I feel you, brother. I'm 6. Okay, so KT's window cleaning says I'm 6 feet tall, 108 pounds, going to stack another 10 pounds on. I have to eat a lot to bulk. I'm having to find balance between the barbell training, boxing. I'm 43, fighting sore elbows, maybe went too hard. Yeah, but also too, man, think about it. And that's where you can minimize heavy bag work, because it can be hard on your body. But if you're already lifting weights and everything else, that's a lot of trauma on your joints, my friend. And even as a younger person, I mean, at least with me as a younger person, at the end of me boxing, when I became the best that I became during my time boxing, which wasn't that great, but it was the best of my own, experience boxing. I was just doing some light deadlifts, like 135 pounds, and some shoulder strengthening stuff, almost like rehab type stuff, some core work, and that's about it. And I became really good. And think about, or decent, right? Became better than my previous self, right? Let's see here. What do you okay, so boxing fans, 77.8. What do you think is missing from boxers in this generation? That's a great question. If you would have asked me this 15 years ago, I would say skills, but I don't think that's actually it. Because I think now with the whatever the word is, I put in a 12-hour day at the gym, guys, so I'm a little bit punch drunk. But with all the social media out there, all the access to videos and everything else with the internet, people are able to see more skills than they ever have, and more able to do what we're doing here, and also watch great fights in the history of boxing. So I think in some ways the skills are pretty damn good. I would say that grit, that heart. Also, back in the day, you had far more competitors. So naturally, out of, if you have 10 times the amount of people competing in a sport, I remember reading one statistic that back in New York City, back in like 1940, you had as many people registered as pro fighters in New York City as you do now currently in the entire United States. So therefore, the genetic crop of athletes is a lot deeper, and it's a lot more competitive. You have guys that, again, they're truly that cliche of a fighter. They have no other option. Nowadays, you have so many options, right? We're dying as a society from comfort in a lot of ways than struggle, like a lot of these guys did. All right, let me catch up with comments here. How do you feel about neck training? Should we be like Mike? Yes, be like Mike, but just watch it with the hyper extending of the neck with the wrestler bridges. I like static neck training. I jacked my neck up really hard doing neck training where I was moving it and really mess it up. I think work your traps. Okay, so let's see. Baquet bomb. I think working your traps and upper back also help reduce KO chances. Yep, absolutely. Luis Enrique, your long format videos are incredible. I take more notes than I did in college classes. I love the man. Lovely comment. Thank you, my friend. Let's see here. What if, okay, so M Morning, M8 Morning. What advice would someone wanting to fight have more fights who doesn't have access to good coaching? My coach is very hands off, real old, but free. So it feels like we have to design our own programs. Yeah, so you largely got to coach yourself. And that's cool. A lot of guys have built up a successful base off of that, man. You certainly can succeed with that. But it's like, man, one of my fighters that now is an undefeated pro fighter, Octavius Bowens, he said something really great that I loved back in about 2016. And he said, this was back when he was, amateur, only maybe had like 8 fights. And again, not this time, like I was super hands-on. And to be clear, in some ways I've become less hands-on as a coach, because sometimes you can almost be like a helicopter parent, right? Where you disable and you limit your child, or you limit your boxer by trying to do everything for them. My first Golden Glove champion, who went on to have a pro career, I did this, man. I babied him too much, and it didn't help him. All right, that's a great question. But so the answer to it, that's a hard answer. Continue what you're doing, man. Watching this stuff, growing yourself, getting good sparring in, talking to other coaches, talking to teammates, and yeah, that's kind of my simple advice for you. Shadow boxing, running, getting enough sparring in, working on your defense. That's what's going to build it up. And then reach out and go to get fights, man. Get people to work your corners, man. I've helped out work some guys' corners, and they've been in your same exact situation, and that they've done okay. Or sometimes they've done really well. Because it is, at the end of the day, what's so cool about boxing is up to you. It's up to you to succeed. All right. Derek, I find a lot of younger generations have a tendency to put their chin forward and down, similar to looking at their phone, increasing fighters. Haven't noticed that personally, but good observation. Artist Dan's Inoue versus Lomo, same size as Lomo goes down, Inoue goes up. A real test for Inoue. I think Lomo got that. I mean, maybe because of Lomo's age, he doesn't get it. But I'm not a masterful matchmaker and boxing predictor for fights, but I have to brag on last year. I was undefeated in my predictions, but this year I've sucked. Don't want to mention the fight that I sucked on so bad this year. Okay. Let's see here. Appreciate you. Yes, KT, thank you, brother. What would you advise for something? Okay. Hi, Coach. Voodoo 2130. Hi, Coach. What do you think of the boxer swarmer style, and which boxers embody that style well? Sugar Ray Leonard and Sugar Robinson come to mind. That's a hard combo. Like, I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you. I don't know. Other ones come to mind. Like Aaron Pryor comes to mind. Yeah, definitely they're aggressive boxers, right? So yeah, man, those are good. Really, honestly, the greatest boxers you can think of in general, the greatest boxers you can think of are like kind of a combination of those things. People tend to think of like, oh, he's a great boxer, so he just like touches and moves. But all these guys that can touch and move, they're truly great boxers. They can also, as you call it, swarm, but what I call is just being aggressive. I hate to be that guy, but I want to ask this. Okay, well, right, Luis, let's do it. You said a nice comment earlier, so what you got to say now? In MMA, what is the part of boxing where most MMA fighters are lacking, and how can a guy that's starting can take advantage of that? Jabbing. Yeah, they still are behind on the jab. They're getting it. MMA guys are getting it, but that jab, man, work that jab. Jab the shoulder, jab the chest, and jab the face, of course. But yeah, I'd say the simple answer is the jab. So KT's window cleaning. Any favorite boxing books? Man, these questions are phenomenal. I'm looking over at this bookcase here. Man, I'm drawn a little blank. There's a good book about great coaches, because that's where my focus is. There's a couple good books about great coaches, and I'm blanking on what they are. Honestly, if you look up great coaching books on like Amazon or whatever, boxing coaching books, and you'll there's a few. Well, one is like Champion in the Corner about Ray Arcel, but then there's another one that's about uh about all the different great boxing coaches of the 20th century, man, and that's an excellent book. That's personally the ones that I like a lot. Okay. Okay, KT, I've been enjoying the Dempsey book and have some of the same books on Peekaboo. Yeah, I'd say just be careful about that because some of that stuff gets a little bit esoteric, in my opinion. But it can be fun reads. Luis, okay, quick sloth. Luis, MMA fighters lack head movement and basic boxing defense. Yes, one thing though is that true, they do lack oftentimes basic boxing defense, but the head movement thing, remember, that's part of the design of it. Okay, not being an MMA coach, but my last video was talking about Conor McGregor Mayweather, and I mentioned some things about MMA, and I do work around MMA fighters and have throughout ever since I started coaching boxers. Head movement can be a dangerous thing in MMA. So yes, it is something that they lack, but they lack it for a reason. So it depends whether you're fighting MMA or fighting in boxing, right? But good observation, Quick Sloth. Yeah, true. The chin is up more, Quick Sloth. You are correct. Oh, what do you got? They fight Terrence Crawford versus Duran. But who do I have? Boxing fan. Who do I have? Terrence versus Duran. Going to go with Terrence. Definitely going to go with Terrence. Great example. Someone commented earlier how Terrence, how boxers are not just like limited to boxing. It's very true. Terrence is apparently a pretty damn good wrestler, and a lot more boxers are a lot good at a lot more things than you realize. I'm having a lot of my boxers, my top level boxers, do a little jiu-jitsu training because it helps, and I've seen it already pay off after 4 weeks or 6 weeks of them doing it. Okay, let's see. Artist Dan's boxing fan 7.8 boots. I don't know. Man, because he might not have the experience at that higher level. I think Terrence has more, but who knows? If you were leading a guy to an MMA fight, would you have him, as he asks, grapple or box first? How would you split up your sessions? Ooh, boxing first, because the MMA or the grappling part really wears you out hard for the punching part. Okay, now there's something to be said for doing training where you go up and down. Okay, because again, to be clear, I did not ever train MMA, but like I've been around it. My wife fought 4 MMA fights. I've been around it. Good guys will do training where they go up and down, meaning you sprawl down, get back up, sprawl down, get back up. So it's important to implement that. But I'd say in general, get that stand-up work first, and then get your grappling work second. But again, I'm kind of stepping outside of my lane here, guys. I want to try to stay in my lane. But I'm happy to give my advice on what my experiences have been. Again, I'm not telling you as a coach to do these things for that, because I'm not a pro MMA coach. Okay. Quick sloth. Head movement is MMA is double-edged sword. Yep, exactly, Luis. Coach, if you had a student who was very talented but inconsistent, what would you do to help? Or is that entirely up to them? Yes, it is entirely up to them. My friend, boxing fan 7878. There are those fairy tale stories or those 1 in a million stories of the coach that willed a fighter to success. But more often than not, I notice the guys that I've known that have gone from zero to a high level and to a very high level to a champion level are the guys that are internally motivated versus externally motivated, right? They don't need that coach riding up their butt. And again, you can think of the exception to the rule, but I'm saying on average, right? And life is short. I personally don't want to waste my time. And I've tried to. I've tried to save guys. I've tried to do so many things. I even let a guy live in an apartment that I owned, and he destroyed that apartment, man. Never going to do that again. But yeah, I've done a lot. Would you rank these by, could you rank these by the biggest impact when a beginner improves? Punching technique, positioning and footwork, and conditioning. That's tough. Number one is, I got to pick one. Conditioning, because if they're a beginner, they don't know how to relax. And so positioning and footwork also fall out the window if you don't have the conditioning. So conditioning, number one, positioning and footwork, punching technique. All right. That's how I run it. Conditioning, position and footwork, punching technique. Because again, those layers of that cake as a beginner, if you're not in condition, you're not able to execute any of these things. Position and footwork allow you to execute something, and punching technique is what you do when you have the footwork to in position to do those things, right? Because I've seen guys that with bad punching technique with good footwork that can give guys trouble. I've seen guys that have neither of the last two things and they have good conditioning and they can cause some trouble. Thanks for the answer, Coach. Luis says, I'll try implementing your multi-jab strategy. Yes, please do. In my sparring sessions to test it as a tall, lanky guy, as a lanky, tall guy with not much strength, very weak, but a long arm reach. Yes, 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 yes. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, man. It will work. It will help. Head movement gets me taken down whenever I spar my wrestling friends. So MMA has its strengths and weaknesses for a reason. Yep. I can see that. Voodoo deleted something. Artist Dan's, what do you think of Ben Whitaker? Next superstar? This is where I'm going to talk about my bias here, Artist Dan's. Somebody who is super showy, it seems to me, and I might be biased, but someone who is super showy, like he is, kind of, sort of, especially early. They hit a roadblock, particularly if they're from England or wherever he's from, Europe. I'm skeptical. I'm not saying he's not good. He's good. I'm not saying he's not talented. He's very talented. But I think he's going to run into trouble somewhere not too long when he steps up. I think. Might be totally wrong. Because you can look like that against certain types of guys. Okay, and I haven't studied him super closely. I want to make that very clear. But that's my short take on it. Literally Twan, do you have a prediction of KSI or Jake fights? I know you're not focused on influencer boxing, but just curious. You mean if KSI versus Jake? I mean, Jake would beat him 100%. Jake takes boxing very seriously, and he's helped boxing, and has brought attention to boxing. So I got nothing but love for Jake Paul. Hate me if you will on that. But I'm digging the double end bag for getting more snap into my punches, KT says. Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. What is the difference between regular boxing gym goers and world champions? Someone who's a world champion has a lot of talent. Someone that's just regular boxing gym goer does not. And we all like to believe if we just train hard enough, we could be great. But not all of us are cut out to be great. Now, granted, I've seen people who didn't seem like they could be great become great, or not great, but really, really, really good. And you don't know what your limit is as a fighter. But I would say champions go the extra mile. Like I mentioned earlier, they're intrinsically motivated, or rather internally motivated. They're not externally motivated. They don't have to have a coach yell at them and scream at them. They show up to the gym. They come consistently. They work on their craft on their own. Everyone that I've had that's been any good, that has won an amateur title or done well at any level, is someone like that. Someone that does it consistently. I've had flukes where guys are just really talented and they do well for a short time. Let's see. Derek Control, do you recommend a particular brand style of shoes for boxing in the ring? And also, what brand style of training on rubber mat flooring? Good question. Man, I don't have a good one on that one. Because rubber mat flooring, well, you want shoes that don't stick too much, right? Because they stick too much, like wrestling shoes and some boxing shoes. It's hard to pivot on and things like that. So I like the shoes to be a little bit slick, just a little bit. I like Adidas. They last a long time. Those are one of my favorite shoes. Let's see. Voodoo. A lot of a lot of focus is about winning fights, but what happens when a fighter loses his fights continuously? Okay, well, I've had guys do that. How would you, as a coach, motivate them? Oh, yes. Well, one is I tell them stories about a lot of fighters that lost their first 10 amateur fights. Okay. So I assume we're talking amateur here largely, but there's a lot of guys that have lost literally, like I said, 10 amateur fights in a row and gone on to be national champions 3 times, 6-time national champions, and then go on to have good pro careers. All right. So this has happened. And I can think of cases in the state that I'm in, the state of Georgia, this has happened. So I'll remind them of that, but I'll also remind them as well of, it depends how they're losing, right? If they're losing fights where it's like they made improvements in, then I acknowledge that the fact that they made improvements. And that is the point. That is the point as an amateur, because you can be an amateur, they don't really have open division and novice anymore, but you can be an amateur and be like 1 in 50, enter a tournament and win the whole damn tournament. It's different when you're pro, but as an amateur, man, your record doesn't mean anything. It means nothing, right? It's a reflection of how well you're doing, right? But it's only one reflection. So that's what I would remind them of. Let's see. Does having shorter legs give an advantage with slicker footwork? I'm 6 feet tall, 160 pounds. I try to be light on my feet. I try to imitate Beeble's style, but I keep getting told I'm flat-footed. I feel clunky. Huh. I don't have a good answer for you there, Quick Sloth. Maybe because your name is Quick Sloth. Sorry, brother. I would have to, man, consider joining level 2, man. Send me some video and I'll give you analysis, man, just like this, and we'll run it back. We'll check it out. Boxing Fan 77, do you think a fighter should train both stance or stick to perfecting the natural stance? Ooh. Do you think a fighter should train both stance or stick to perfecting the natural stance? What do you mean exactly? Do you mean like a universal stance where he just goes between stances? I do have a bias to the old school style of teaching a stance and kind of keeping that stance until they reach a certain point and then allowing them to deviate from that. Because I like kind of building that foundation first. And then we're able to experiment a little bit when we have our feet under ourselves, literally and figuratively. And then get creative with it. Hope that answers your question. Athenry. Coach, how many times a week should a beginner be sparring? 6 months regular training experience if they are intending to actually compete. 1 to 2 times a week. 1 to 2 times a week. And then sometimes take a week off. But more than twice a week, you're going to be causing more harm than good, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I agree. Artist Dan says has to show it against higher level guys. Yes, with Whitaker. Absolute chonker. Coach, if I shoot a jab down to the body, how do I protect myself at the opponent chopping down at me with a right hand? Will pulling straight back after the body shot work well? Yes. So jabbing to the body opens you up for the right hand. Correct. Couple things. Don't always just lead to the jab to the body, right? If you just start jab to the body, it can be obvious that you're going for that jab to the body, right? That's number one. So set it up with a jab up high sometimes go low, high right afterwards, and that left arm can interfere with that right hand. Then as well, even if that classic 1 to the body, 2 up top, it can catch him before that right hand counter comes. Like you said, jab pulling out, so that's a little bit more defensive type maneuvering. I'm thinking about how we can, hit them more off of it. And then one that I love, basic thing, jab, and you can catch that right hand coming over top with kind of like what's called a cross block by some people. Holyfield did that a lot, crossing over like that, jab to the body, boom. So yeah, something that I dealt with as a short person. I've had a lot of people deal with it successfully. Let's see. Luis, how do we re-educate reactions, responses? For example, leaning back too much. Is it just by drilling the desired reaction until it is ingrained, or do we train in other specific ways? Old bad habits stuck. Okay, yes. So how do we re-educate reactions or retrain things like leaning back? Yeah, by creating like kinesthetic situations, right, where you're physically. One thing that I will do as a coach, I will hold someone so you can have your partner hold you back. So you're working defense and they're literally holding you back. Man, I used to do this a lot, particularly when my sole only focus was training fighters. Like that was the only people I would work with was fighters. I would just get behind them, hold them down a little bit, So they had to stay there and they couldn't rely on leaning back. So they could get their hand defense proper. And it's a psychological idea that I got from my father, who's a PhD in neuroscience, clinical psychologist, as well as a professional boxing coach, of flooding, right? Of exposure therapy, right? So that would be my short answer to that one, man. That's a great question. I keep a cross guard on my face, absolute chunker when going low to the body. Yeah, so you're doing that, right? Cool. It's a good one. Yep. One arm. Derek, are you still running and chopping trees? I'm not running much now because I'm working 70 plus hours a week. I've spent the last year lifting weights. I gained about 15 pounds of muscle. And, it's good to kind of go through those different phases of life, but I'm intend to get back into running, Derek. I appreciate the push, and I'm going to start doing that, or I appreciate the reminder. Start doing that as it gets a little bit cooler because I'm a little bit of baby with the hot weather out there. Let's see. More serious question by Artist Dan. What do you think about guys cutting down to have an advantage? Like so many seem to be doing it nowadays. That's very true. As they've gotten better at drastic weight cuts, more and more guys are doing it. And they're more and more able to cut down extremely. But we have yet to see the damage that it's causing to these guys. And we have seen the damage that it has caused to some athletes that have excessively cut. There's a lot of horror stories that you don't hear about on the lower levels that I've heard about. Guys going to the hospital a lot. I'm just not big on it, man. One of my wife's old coaches, Richard Trammell, who fought professional in every martial art, basically, meaning pro boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, everything. His adage was that people that are weight bullies are afraid to fight people their own size, and that's true. If that's the advantage that someone's looking to gain, like, don't get me wrong, it can be an advantage, but I'm just not about it. Call me biased. From a fellow coach, what would you advise for progressing amateur boxers? How basic should I go? And how much should I teach regarding advanced techniques and methods? That's a great question. It depends what level, right? Getting ready for the first fight, let's say, it's all about the basics, all about the basics. And I would say for the first 10 to 15 fights, man, it becomes all about the basics. I mean, not that you don't sprinkle some things in there, but my whole thing, that's a great question, man. My whole thing is what are the results that we're getting and where are the holes that we're seeing, right? So I'm using sparring and their performance in fights as the main barometer. I'm saying because we all know, man, I know, coach, that at the high level, man, it's oftentimes some basic stuff that's not being done that could be done that would result in a better fight and a win. Classic example, De La Hoya versus Mayweather, man. De La Hoya stopped jabbing. If he would have jabbed more, he probably would have won the split decision instead of lost the split decision. So again, I'm not saying that I don't sprinkle it in there, but I really always go back to the foundation. So I sprinkle in some advanced things, but then I run right back to the foundation. Sprinkle in some advanced things, run back down to the foundation. And then I also do it on a case-by-case basis. What are my guys doing? Or what is my guy doing? How is he progressing? Is he ready for something a little bit more advanced? And would that actually help him win more fights and do better, right? Or would just building up certain more foundational pieces be more beneficial? I hope that's a good question for you, my friend. Any tips on being able, F. Henry, at Henry, any tips on being able to take what was practiced in drills or on the pads into the ring, since it's so hard to think about things in the ring as opposed to getting in the flow? Well, my simple tip on that is pick one thing. Pick one thing that you're going to try a few different times, multiple times in your sparring session or in your fight, and pick that one thing and implement it. I mean, obviously first sparring, right? So whatever you're drilling in on pads, make it the point. I'm going to implement in sparring. I'll give you an example for me, a dip and step in with a lead hook. That's something I would catch people with all the time. How did I start implementing that? I would first just test it out in sparring over and over again. And I realized it worked really well. So I'd do it. And then I'll try other moves that wouldn't work. And I probably wouldn't even ever try it again. But it's good to try moves multiple times. That's my short answer for that one. Luis, leaning back to deep behind became a crutch for me. Yep. Okay. So leaning back. Uh, Guys in sparring start taking advantage of that by fainting upstairs and then either kicking my legs or taking me down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the push forward. Derek, when you throw uppercuts, are your palms facing in or thumb up? Oh, great question. Great question, Derek. I've seen both. Thumbs facing seem to be penetrating guard. Yep, but hard to land knuckles properly. Yes. Um, I feel like the maximum power punch would probably be a palm facing you punch. And then again, like you said, thumb facing you to split up guard. Absolutely. So you kind of answered your own question, but great point. More power. And if you watch the biggest uppercuts, it's more often a palm facing them uppercut versus a thumb facing them. But that thumb is really great to split that guard. Luis, I'll definitely implement the pushing on the back. Yes. Do it. Cool. Thanks for the great advice. Awesome. Love it, man. I'll be wrapping it up at 10:30. It's just been an explosion. I've been trying to run through it all, and I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of it. All right. Thanks for the great advice, Zero. Yes, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Baquet Bomb. What favorite combos to throw in the pocket? Baquet. It's a great question, my friend. 3 up high, 3 down low, man. High, low, high, low. Yes, my boxers, they hear me call that. I love the hook up top, hook downstairs with the left arm to get the liver. Then I also love the rear hook to the body or the lead hook to the body. Doesn't matter, the left to the right. And the uppercut with the same hand. Hook to the body, uppercut, same hand. Beautiful combinations. Beautiful combinations. And then one more is maybe, if I had to make a third one, the short overhand style right or two, followed up by lead uppercut. Great sequences there. Great question, dude. All right, Artist Dan's. What do you think is the most effective guard style in boxing? Artist Dan's, you need to watch my whole video about guards, my friend. Where I talk about how guards is, it's like whatever. Basic boxing stance is the most effective guard. Sorry to be like that about that, but basic boxing stance. Don't think of guards, think in terms of defense and what you're doing offensively. Let's see. Morning, morning. What are your opinions on the Soviet style video reacting to Russian school of boxing channel? Wink, wink. Yeah, I mean, dude, the Russians have made more and more of a case for themselves. If you were to ask my dad and a lot of older school boxing coaches, they'd crap all over the Soviet style in terms of how it applies to pros. And it's not built for pros, it's built for amateurs and the fencing style. And there's absolutely benefits to it. And the foundational pieces behind it are largely sound boxing techniques. And yeah, I'll consider making a video on it. Absolutely. Great tip. Luis, I have heard so many times from instructors that switching stances while throwing combinations is dangerous, but we have seen Golovkin and others do it. How do they get away with it? Well, it all depends about levels, right? Okay, so, and that's one of those things that I was just talking about. I was just talking to someone about this today, a guy named Bob who has fought a bunch of like Muay Thai fights, or at least a good handful. The all or nothing type talk, right? Oh yeah, everything's all trade-offs, right? There's a trade-off benefit to switching a stance. There can be. Somebody changes position on you, you switch stance or just go after them in the position that now they forced you into. Being able to do that is important. It's useful. It's helpful. So that's a benefit, right? There's no downside to that necessarily. And sometimes you shooting a lead rear hand and kind of crossing over the stance and doing a lead hook, man. I had this one fighter do that all the time, and I stole that move from him, man. I taught all my guys to do it. And so there's certain things which, like, there's a time and a place for it. You want to build the foundation. You don't want someone that's switching because they're tired. There's two reasons someone switches because they're bad. They're tired or they're frustrated, right? Third one, maybe they're hurt, right? They're hurt on one side of the body, so they're trying to hide that body. So those are, generally three things that make switching definitely have a bad name, rightfully so. Because you see it all the time with these kind of beginner boxer guys. They're tired of jabbing. So they're like, okay. Or they're getting frustrated. So they switch stance, right? And that's oftentimes a sign, oftentimes a sign to you that you're getting to them. All right. Uh, but talking in all or nothing language, like, oh, dude, if you switch stance, you're gonna get knocked out. You open up your stomach, you can get knocked out. Or even if you have your chin up, you're gonna get knocked out. I don't say those things. I used to say those things, right? I was once a bad man, now I'm a good man, right? I was once a bad coach, like that guy, whatever, hard to hit, but now I'm a good coach, right? Yeah, like I would tell someone, yo, you're gonna knock the hell out with your chin up in the air. And then they'd go on many fights and do fine with their chin up in the freaking air. They're increasing the likelihood. That's like telling your kid that, hey, you don't wear a seatbelt, you're gonna die in a crash. Well, if they never crash, they're never gonna die. But that one time they do crash, they're probably gonna die. All right. Um, let's see. Well, okay, Baquet Bomb. What would you say is the average time frame for beginners to be ready for sparring? Couple weeks, dude. Couple weeks. Don't take too long on it because you don't have context to what you're doing. You know, just to kind of talk about like hard to hit. What he talked about with shadowboxing, outside of the fact that he likes to not call shadowboxing and calls it hitting air and also the bullshit. Um, he does have a point that if you train like shadowboxing and you've never sparred, it is hard to put context to it. So therefore, if you do choose to fight or want to truly get better at this art called boxing, within a couple weeks you should be sparring. Now, what do I mean by within a couple weeks should you be sparring? Should be going against the pro in your gym, unless he knows how to work and he takes care of you. No. Should you be sparring with even all punches? Maybe not, but just jab spar. You know, do some controlled close sparring, and that's one of the paramounts of motor learning is that more closed training for beginners and you gradually get more open. So you want them to be able to learn their body a little bit. And the more you hide them away from the actual thing that is the sport, the harder it will be for them to do that. Now, granted, you don't want to just get people to get beat the hell out of. That's why you do titrated sparring where it's modified and minimized and slightly grown more. So they get used to it. Exposure. Great question. Backward boxing. Ooh, speaking of Soviet style, Bevo analysis too. Yeah. I've had a lot of guys study him and get good benefits from him. That would be a good idea. LF, I need to work on using my entire arm. Oh, man. Frank, thank you for the super chat. I was going to ask for some super chats. And Frank86, $4.99 super chat. Oh, my God. LF, I'm going to be back to you in a second. But let me go to Frank, my man. Can you do a video breakdown on how a tall fighter should fight on the inside? Ooh, Frank, that's a good one. That's a damn good one. Man, Frank just rolling in and freaking dropping an atomic bomb on him, my friend. All right. I will strongly consider that, Frank. Strongly consider it, my friend. Okay, but LF, okay, I need to work on using my entire arm to create traffic for incoming punches, like my forearm, elbows, and shoulders. Yes. Agreed. Can you, and also but focus on smallest moves possible, right? So if like you're focusing on like too much of this stuff, oh, you mean like out, right? Because you're long. I would agree with that. Yes. Can you talk a bit about how a boxing gym can actually be profitable? So many boxing gyms barely pay the bills because fighters tend to be poor. Yes. So when I first opened up my own boxing gym back in 2013, right, over 10 years ago, this is what I realized. Because my dad ran a pro boxing gym for about 10 years. He broke even. Why did he break even? Because he had a lot of guys that he would only work with fighters, people who wanted to fight, and people who wanted to go pro. And if you weren't going to do that, and you didn't do that, he didn't let you come in. And so because he would take guys and had a lot of guys be journeymen as well, he was able to break even at best. But he also wasn't able to support himself off the gym. He was retired from psychology, and so he got a retirement and everything else, and that's how he was able to survive and do well and do fine. But if he didn't have that, he wouldn't be living and surviving. Okay. Me having a GED, no college education, having Lyme disease, being almost disabled from that, I need to make money and coach boxers, right? So, and I don't really want to work a day job because I'm just not that type of dude. I will work hard, but I just don't like that. And so, yeah, man, I was like, how can I do my thing and also support it? So I met my wife who ran a gym that was around for a long time, that had fighters, but also did well financially. And so I modeled that. So getting something that's beginner friendly, general public friendly, but you doesn't mean you're going to lose your essence, man. A lot of times, man, occasionally, not a lot of times, but occasionally I have these dudes that come in and they have this crap idea of what a boxing gym is and what a real boxing coach is. And they think it's going to be that poor old Mickey guy sitting down by the ring waiting for his next world champion. And the guy eats out of a freaking shoe and, you know, whatever, is an alcoholic, right? He's an alcoholic because his life effing sucks, dude. You know, you don't want that as a boxing coach. You don't want that as your coach if you're a boxer. And then also, too, it leads you guys to take chances that you should be taking when you go pro because they're freaking poor as crap, okay? Unless you get hooked up with someone really, really well that has some money to help you to be your sugar mama or your sugar daddy. So the advice is be beginner friendly. That's a whole topic, man. I got to go into it. That's a damn good question, dude. Look at some of my material on like Keppner Boxing franchise and stuff like that. I'm not saying you should buy a franchise because I'm not actually doing any more franchises beyond the ones that we have. But you know, you have to become a master of the business of running a gym. But it doesn't mean you can't lose your heart and your soul of being a boxing coach. Proof. Let's see here. Can you talk about, but yeah, focusing that being the best is not all it takes. You also got to, at Henry, you also got to master customer service, sales, retention, and then the fighters are your hobby, if that makes sense. What was your most memorable fight and why? Dude, I only had a few fights. I had a lot of gym wars. I boxed for about 5 years seriously, and during that time, half the time I was sick as hell. And so I can't give you my most memorable stuff. I'll tell you one thing was a fight that I had where people told me this is probably my biggest brag, right? So the one USA boxing fight I had, I fought this guy Pacheco. You know, you never forget the names of some people, particularly when you don't have many fights, right? When you get to be like some of the guys I have that have, you know, tens upon tens of fights, you know, you forget. But I remember people came up to me afterwards, and I lost a split decision to the guy because I got a little bit too tired in the end because I was trying to knock him the hell out. And people were telling me like wide-eyed, like, dude, your punches were, I could hear your punches across the whole freaking, it was like this huge baseball, like training area, like, you know, one really big, you know, 20,000, whatever, 10,000, no, yeah, more than 10,000 square foot place. Like I could hear your punches across the whole place, the whole area, the whole arena or whatever. So yeah, so that was a nice little memorable moment. But again, dude, I was not a great fighter by any means, shape or form, right? I'm tough, you know, I could take a punch, I could hit hard, but I'm a much better coach. And so I've produced guys, like I like to brag, I produced many guys that would beat the crap out of me at my best when I boxed. All right. And that is a thing of honor that I feel, because that's what a good coach is, I believe. A good coach isn't someone that can only make you as good as they were. They should be able to make you better. Unless your coach is freaking Muhammad Ali, right? Or Sherry Robinson. Or you could say maybe Floyd Mayweather. But again, like who's he going to produce, and who did Muhammad Ali or Sugar Robinson produce? Okay, so banquet Bob closed, then open training. Got it. Yep, absolutely. Starting a boxing club at my college this year. Yes, dude, brother. Yeah, man. Please, like, ask me for as much advice as you want on that. Yeah. So start off, keep it basic. The jab. If you can't stop a jab, you don't need a spar, right? So working catching the jab, slipping the jab, and you guys just spar with just the jab. Right, get used to that. You're least likely to hurt each other, and then you build maybe jabs and body shots, and the next all shots. All right. By the way, if you're a channel member, you get a video where I talk about like how to coach sparring and a lot of things like that. So check that out, maybe. Let's see. Absolute chonker, coach. What's your pick for Bivol versus Beterbiev? Oh my gosh, dude, that's a good one. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to go for Beterbiev. I was a bigger fan of Bivol for a while. I had a thing against Beterbiev because I had this one guy that would watch Beterbiev all the time, and he was like a poor man's version of Beterbiev without the power. But man, I'm going to give the edge to Beterbiev. Okay, I'm going to give the edge to it. It's going to be a close fight, very competitive fight. I'm going to give the edge to him. How do I find a sugar mama? Well, it's a great question. Is not an appropriate answer is what I have for you. Or you just get really freaking lucky. Or you become a goddamn freaking multi-time national champion, and then maybe you can get yourself a sugar mama. Hey, coach, in your video on training as a beginner to become a novice champion, you suggested shadowboxing drills, pads, and sparring over a 4-day split. How many rounds should we be sparring? Yes. Uh, 3 to 5 rounds. 3 to 5 rounds, like in a set. Really, ideally, dude, like 3 to 4 rounds in a set. Take a break, jump back in there, get another set. Look at it like weightlifting. We're doing sets, and then breaks in between sets. Get used to those 3 rounds that you're going to be doing and putting out enough effort. Don't get used to pacing yourself over a lot of rounds. You can maybe do that here and there. You can do that here and there, but you need to be able to focus on that output. If it takes you a few rounds to get the freak going, you've lost your amateur fight. All right. I've had a lot of guys, or I've had guys where I've made that mistake. I've had them training with a pro fighter I would train, and they would spar, freaking 8 rounds, and they would spar at the pace this pro fighter would be sparring at, who is fighting 8 rounds. All right. Hope that's a good answer there for you. Luis, now that you mentioned psychology, can we get some videos about boxing psychology for guys that are starting out? Yes, absolutely. Call me Meme Lord. How to get that dog in me? I've always worried about my opponent after I hit them hard. Can you please tell me how I can fix that? Well, man, it's either killed or be killed. So like, I had a mantra when I was in Mexico, because man, when I went down to Mexico, it was a culture shock difference, right? You know, the 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 spicy food. No, I'm just kidding. But it's the Mexican warrior type thing, right? I'm blanking on what it's called. Aztec warrior, right? Like, dude, they're all tough SOBs. Like, they're all tough SOBs. You got to be tough down there. It's like old school America. It's like 1950s America. Being down there, my dad said, was like being in 1950s America. All right. So it's that type of men are men, right? And women are women type thing. And there's a beauty to that. And so I was used to, up in the States, I had some power. So I'd hit someone and they get on a bicycle, start moving. Down there, you hit someone, they stand right there, they hit you back hard. So remember, it's killed or be killed. It's killed or be killed. And if it depends who you're fighting, but man, you gotta remember, it's like it's either you or him. It's either you or him. And being worried about hitting someone hard, man, that's a big limiting factor. All right. Okay. Let's see. Jesse James Leha as a coach promoter. They offered me to. I know of Jesse James. They offered to promote me when he first partnered with Golden Boy years ago. Don't think they could do much for me. Bad choice on my part. You don't know. You don't know. It's hard to say. Because again, at the end of the day, it's twofold. Can you name guys that have made it with because again, think about it. They build you up and then they sell your contract to a bigger promoter, right? So yeah, I mean, but that's cool, dude. That's awesome, man. Maybe it was something, maybe it wasn't. There might have been reasons why you didn't take it, and maybe those were damn good reasons, my friend. How long should amateurs, because I've seen that mistake happen as well, where someone takes an opportunity like that, and because of certain red flags that they saw, they considered not taking, but they took it anyway, and bad things happened. How long should amateurs rest before going back to training or taking another fight if they don't get concussed? I've heard of guys fighting every other week and even a couple days in between. Yeah, generally, yes. Yeah. The more experience you get, the better. And when you're an amateur and you're getting your fights under you, the more you can fight within reason, the better. Now, it becomes a question now, are you improving between fights, right? Is there like some type of improvement? And also, are you not going backwards, right? So that's another thing too that I watch out for with my guys. And granted, though, a lot of times, man, it's just like trying to get as many goddamn fights as you can, because sometimes it's hard to get fights for certain weight classes and things like that. Depending what state you're in, you might not have a really stacked division. After COVID, man, at least in my experience, it just killed a lot of the competition for my guys and a lot of boxing in the Southeast. So you tell me if you've seen that other places for anyone else that's anywhere else. How long should everyone? Okay, so anyway, as much as possible, just don't fight on a Saturday and then spar that Wednesday and then fight the next Saturday. You can fight, stay sharp, fight the next weekend, bam. And also, you got to be ready to do a tournament, right? Where you might fight 2 or 3 days in a row. Okay, someone named K. Hey, coach, I struggle with getting my right cross through. I can fully extend my jab, but my cross seems to be the same distance as my jab. I'm rotating my hips. Is there anything else to help me get it fully extended? Well, so a couple things. Like one is you might need to be aware of where your foot is, right? You might need to make sure you bring your foot up either with your jab or with the right hand. The second thing is making sure that you not only turn the hips, but really turn those shoulders so you literally end up as a southpaw as you throw it. If you look at like great right hand hitters like Rocky Marciano, Sheree Robinson, people like that, you see them maximally rotate. So they go from being in an orthodox stance to being a southpaw stance with their upper body. All right. That's my basic tip for you. Okay. Gus, appreciate you, brother. Rocky Rodriguez, yeah, I'm a channel member. Consider being a channel member. Consider dropping me a super chat. Any tips for getting rid of being gun shy? Ooh, I don't know, man. That's a deep question right there. I'll tell you my fast tip for it. Man, I don't know if this is a tip, but I would just hit myself in the face with my boxing glove before the round starts and just go. And this is where visualization helps a lot too, man. Watch my visualization video. I'm sure you probably did, but implement those things. It can make a big difference. Okay, when I train, I used to hard. Okay, when I'm training, I'm used to hard flooring, but when I go in the ring, I feel more tense and getting jelly legs. Oh yes, is there anxiety way? Yeah, you just need to get in the ring more. And also, if you're used to hard flooring, it's going to tire out the hell out of your legs when you get up in the ring. So spend more time in the ring, shadow boxing, or on like a softer surface. Yeah, just spend more time in the ring. But yes, absolutely. I've trained on like cement for a period of time, and then when I go in the ring and spar, just like freaking horrible. So, and I was a little bit of a neurotic type dude sometimes. It was when I got older, I learned to freaking calm the hell down and not be so damn neurotic. All right. Zero bite. We're here in Ireland, and most clubs we utilize the high guard with a traditional boxing style and with a similar style to Mexican boxing, forward pressure and ring cutting. Yeah, it's good foundational stuff. Good foundational stuff. Then mix that in with kind of the more. If you were to just composite that with the kind of standard Olympic boxing style of just like moving and bouncing, almost you could say like kind of Soviet-ish Cuban style, then you have a pretty well-rounded mix there. LF, I just started boxing 2 months ago, and my shoulders have been getting torn up. Yes, absolutely, particularly on my lead hand. Yep. The basic band external rotator cuff hasn't been enough to keep my shoulders healthy. Yes, I would say probably your long-term fix there, LF, is to throw your lead hand punches with way less effort. Work on, and also you need to give them some freaking rest, dude. Give them some freaking rest. You better not be doing any bench presses or anything else like that. They're going to jack it up more. Don't do any over the head presses either. And work on just low effort lead hand punches where you're not tense, because any type of tension can kill it. If that's the problem, that's the answer. Also, don't sleep on that side. And yeah, and also try the ball thing I talked about with like massaging yourself. Okay, let's see. However, a recent many clubs have adopted different styles of boxing from the vast amounts of footage available. Yeah, online, and most effective boxing styles in the amateur circuits in Americas. Yes, my friend. Yeah, dude. So that is a good example. You delete your comment. Cool, you retracted it. But man, see, that's the thing I talked about where because of all the technology we have now, man, I feel like fighters, my dad would hate me saying this, but are like more well-rounded and better skilled than they've ever been in ways. They're maybe just less hungry. Okay, let's see. Luis, amateur fights for guys that are starting out are usually 3 rounds of 2 minutes in my country. How do we structure out training for such short but explosive fights? Yes. So you think about it like, you're talking 6 minutes of work, right? Training in those cycles, but you want to train a little bit beyond those cycles, right? It's just like, if you're running a race, I've trained for, races as well. And, just because you're running a 5K doesn't mean you only run 5K, right? You do some longer runs. And so that's where it doesn't hurt for your workouts. But now, granted, to that point, you don't need to be doing marathon workouts. There's a great interview I was reminded of like a year ago of this idea with like George St. Pierre, where he was talking about with his training. for MMA and whatnot, where he was doing like these super long trainings that were like grappling style workouts because a grappler might like go on a match for a long time and it hurt his explosiveness and things like that. So I would say as an amateur, focus more on like training intensely, like outside of your skill work, right? Your skill work could be over a period of time, but your conditioning, boxing style workouts, 30 minutes, man, 30 minutes. Once that glycogen and everything else in your muscle starts dropping, then you want to start cutting it. But again, it doesn't hurt from time to time to do a longer session, to sometimes do, like I said, more round sparring, things like that. Just get time, just like it doesn't hurt a runner to do that as well. Hope that gives you an answer, man. Okay. Okay, Baquet. Okay, maybe look into the Fitzsimmons shift. Could be interesting. Okay, I'll look into that. However, I know of Bob Fitzsimmons, but that's a term that you wouldn't hear in a boxing gym. However, recent McClellan. Yeah, yep. At Henry, what are your top 3 tips for being able to be more relaxed in sparring? Great question. Well, 1, doing more of it, but 2, visualization. That's what made the big world of difference for me. So try it, and then realize like I had 2 guys spar today that were complete noobs, and one guy was doing totally fine. The other guy was just falling apart because the other guy was just trying too hard, And it's like this concept of sand in the hand, right? So you put sand in your hand, right? And if I just hold it like this, what's going to happen? The sand's going to fall out of my hand, right? Or wind is going to blow it out of my hand, right? If I do this with the sand, what's going to happen now? I'm going to lose most of it. It's all most going to be gone. Sand in the hand, cup it, just enough, just the right amount of effort. That is what you need. Analogy thought. Okay, artist Dan's. Is being an Olympic medalist the same as being a champion amateur? Olympic medals seem to be more hype than anything, in my opinion. Yes, and there's a lot of corruption in the Olympics. Now, of course, if you're an Olympian, right, Olympic champion, there's like one of you every 4 years, right? So automatically that's like a higher stature, right? And back in the day, that my friend, that meant a lot, right? Means less and 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 less as the Olympics become a little bit more of a whatever the hell that thing is. And yeah, so or I'll give you an example, right? So I was told that like Boom Boom Mancini, he like lost national titles, went up to national, but lost national titles, but still got a good pro contract. Why? Because he had a pro style. Okay. So, and also the Olympics is very political, man. Like in terms of them picking people and things like that, not picking other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to be wrapping it up in 3 minutes, guys. So let's close it out. This has been amazing, guys. If you don't mind, drop me a super thanks. I really appreciate it. Let me wrap it up here. I'm going to do my best to just blast through this as hard as I can. Oh my gosh, what are 10 tips for southpaws besides keeping your lead foot outside? 10 tips, man. Just box like anybody else. That's my total of 10 tips. Don't change too many things. Make it just box, baby. Do exactly what you do. Don't overthink about it. Everything in the same place in ways besides where the feet are. But even that with that, it's like sometimes it doesn't even freaking matter. Appreciate that, coach. I never thought of trying to get it through as if I switched my stance with the cross. I just tried it in there and I didn't realize that that's how far I need to rotate. Yes, that is how far you need to rotate, Kay. That's awesome, brother. What are your best methods for increasing endurance? I would say most specific to amateur boxing, 100-yard sprints, walk the curve, 100-yard sprints or 100-yard, whatever that is, and walk the curve of a track, sprint the track, it's like 100 meters or whatever, and do that multiple times, 6, 10 sets, working up the full speed. That I like that a lot for increasing conditioning. Made a world difference for me. Let's see. Baquet Bomb, we'll have to look at does help with jelly legs. Not sure. Okay, Bruce M. How many rounds should we shadow box and do skill work as beginners? Yes, great question. Shadow box about 3 to 5 rounds. Well, like assuming you've been boxing for a couple months, right? 3 to 5 rounds and skill work for about 3 to 5 rounds. And do that just about every day. Caleb, when I throw a jab cross hook, should I always step with the lead hook at the end of the combo? Oh, that's a great question. No, you should not always step with it because it might be there for you. So, because you might throw the jab and get in range on them, the right hand will be a little bit shorter, right? A little bit more bent arm punch, and that'll get you in range for a hook that you don't even step with, right? Because if you've got someone on the ropes, you don't want to necessarily step in with the hook on that. But yeah, practice doing both. Okay, practice also spinning with the hook, stepping back with the hook as well. Let's see, wrap it up here. Oh my gosh, running out of time, guys. Okay, let's see here. Love you, coach. Love you too, LF. Thank you. If you guys don't mind, drop me a super thanks. I really appreciate it. What methods do you use to increase your fighter's endurance? Man, it sounds lame, but man, all the basics, dude, nothing special. But like I said, the sprints and incorporating some long distance runs, as well as dude, bag work, shadow boxing, all the basic stuff. Nothing special, my friend, but great question. Great channel, sir. What should fans be looking for in the screen to educate themselves when they watch a fight, not see the sport as casuals do? Hmm. 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 I'd say try to look for the overall idea of what's going on, right? Who is overreacting? Who's jabbing more? Who's controlling the ring better? But again, you have to kind of understand the sport to do this, right? So again, I'm assuming someone understands the sport to do that. Whose defense is better, right? Who foundationally with their stance is a little bit better, a little bit safer. That's my short answer. Thank you, coach. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I'm gonna close it out. What is a super thanks? New to life. So there's this little thing that's like a money sign, and you can like click it, and it drops the super thanks. I see it down there. So where your comments are, there should be like a money sign, and you can click it and do like a super chat or super thanks. Yeah, I'm still getting used to this too, my friend. But I appreciate the love, everybody. Consider again. Been a long day for me. Consider joining level 2, where I'd love to watch your sparring, your training, and your fights. Give you thoughts, feedback that you can use to get better. And make sure you click subscribe. A lot of you guys aren't subscribed, so please subscribe. Really would appreciate that. Share with someone you think might benefit. And let's keep on rock and roll. LF. Oh, thank you, brother. All right, can we get one more before we close out? LF dropped the $3.99. Freaking amazing. Basically, essentially bought me a cup of coffee for tomorrow. Thank you, my friend, because I need it. Because, man, I've, like I said, 12-hour day at the gym. Can we do one more before? Boom, Rocky. All right. Thank you, Rocky. You the man. You guys rock. I appreciate it. Signing off. If you want me to do this more often, let me know. All right. Appreciate you guys. See you later.